Tonight, Water Worry, a KXAN investigation from the First Warning Weather Team. The state climatologist says more severe future droughts will mean less water in the Highland Lakes, the drinking water supply for more than 1 million Central Texans.
What used to be high temperatures in the upper 90s become high temperatures in the low hundreds because it means water evaporates from reservoirs more rapidly.
The city of Austin is the biggest purchaser of water from the lakes, which are managed by the Lower Colorado River Authority, LCRA.
Austin Water, as a water and wastewater utility, knows that utilities face many different impacts from climate change. We know that the future is going to be more uncertain. We know the future will be different than the past.
Last year, a record low amount of water flowed into the Highland Lakes, and as of last week, this year is on track to beat that record. That's where LCRA's water management plan comes into play, determining whose water gets shut off and when. Unlike the city of Austin, LCRA's plan does not consider climate change a factor, but agency officials are taking a closer look at that after we started investigating. Just northwest of Austin, Karen Bruett has called Lake Travis home since 1999.
This lake is more than a plaything. This lake is actually our drinking water.
In that time, she's seen the population of the city downriver double.
The development is going to crush our water supply.
While she fears her water will be shut off someday, farther downriver 110 miles, that's today's reality for rice farmer Tim Gertson.
I learned from my dad and my grandfather.
His family operation is dried up this year after the Lower Colorado River Authority cut off the water supply.
There's a lot of jobs that depend on that water that comes down the Colorado River.
We have a lot of different stakeholders with a lot of competing interests that we have to balance.
Decisions like that are governed by the LCRA's 2020 Water Management Plan.
It's designed to steer us through a drought of record.
The latest version of the plan is based on our drought of record from 2008 to 2015, when lake levels were nearly the lowest we've ever seen. But the state climatologist predicts droughts will soon be worse than that. Rising temperatures, evaporating surface moisture, and less dependable rain are all the effects of climate change, which is also predicted to impact our future water supply. But climate change doesn't appear to be a factor in the LCRA's current 67-page water management plan. In fact, the phrase climate change doesn't show up once. Through an open records request, we also asked for any internal communication over roughly the past year between LCRA executives and their board, mentioning the plan and the words climate change. There were none.
How often are you discussing climate change internally amongst the decision makers at LCRA?
Well, within the context of the water management plan, it's a short-term operational plan, so the climate change subject is not as much of a driver.
In recent history, LCRA's water management plan has been updated every 5 years. During our interview with the agency's executive vice president of water, he committed to opening public comment in 2025 for the plan's next update.
So how do you weigh the state climatologist's findings that climate change in the future will change the amount of available water in the Highland Lakes that you manage?
I don't know how to do that just yet. I mean, I think that's one of the discussions that you'll have as a part of the next update process of our water supply resources report, is to what extent that factors into managing water going into the future.
So climate change will be a part of those discussions?
Climate change would be a part of the discussions. Anything that affects the amount of water that we have coming into the system, the amount of water coming out of the system. Basically, we're going to be more focused on change and what's happening with change and what's happening with uncertainty and how we can make a resilient system.
The water users we spoke with worry 2025 isn't soon enough.
There's it's definitely a threat to the industry.
Our climate is changing, and yet we're acting and behaving and making decisions as though we're back in, 1985.
If and when the water management plan is updated, it must first receive approval from the LCRA board, then receives final approval from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
And David, what do we know about the decision makers on that board?
Daniel, the LCRA board is made up of 15 members, all appointed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott to serve 6-year terms. Now, we reached out to every member, including 2 new appointees, awaiting Senate confirmation for comment and we received no response.
And I'm curious, what does the governor say about climate change?
Well, the scientific community has been pushing the governor to recognize the term climate change and its role in things like natural disasters. He notably said in 2019, when he was pressed about hurricanes and climate change, that he's, quote, not a scientist, and it's impossible for me to answer that.
And what does the governor say about our water supply?
Well, keep in mind, surface water, like what we get from the lakes, makes up about half of the state's existing water supply, and experts say it's highly vulnerable to climate change and how it speeds up evaporation. Now, we asked the governor's office about the LCRA's plan, climate change, and about the board he appoints, and we did not hear back.
But we know things have really been busy at the Capitol with the legislative session nearing its end.
They sure have. And in the past, GOP leaders in Texas have supported big infrastructure projects to protect property from what's often termed at the Capitol extreme weather, instead of using the phrase climate change. But they are well aware of Texas's water needs. Now, there is a Senate plan working on track for the governor's desk that would set aside billions to fund new water sources and pay for upgrades to the state's aging water infrastructure. If Abbott puts his signature on the plan, Texas would then have to give their approval to create the funds during the election this fall in order for the state to move forward.
All right, David, thank you very much for all of that. And for more perspective from the state climatologist on Central Texas's warmer, more arid future, plus David's animation looking at the path of the lower Colorado River, just head to this story in the investigative section of KXAN.com.